All right, folks, we're going to get started here in just a second. If everyone can find their seats, please. All right, we are at 6:03. My name is Connor Daly. I'm a town moderator, and I will hereby call this meeting to order. This is an informational meeting to discuss actions on Article 1, Article 2, and Article 3, both including both this, well, not the city presentation, school district budget, and Article 3 presentation. We have 3 items to discuss tonight before we adjourn and return tomorrow morning for Australian ballot voting at 7 a.m. at the Senior Center at 65 Barlow. Is that right? 123 Barlow. Thank you very much. The first article on the agenda tonight is to elect a moderator and a clerk to oversee this process for next year. So that includes this informational meeting this time next year and the Australian ballot voting next year in 2027. Do I hear any nominations for moderator? Please. Correct. Sorry. I included the city for no reason, just for fun. Yes, Aurora Hurd is clerk. I also decline. I'm busy. Do I hear any? So we will need a new moderator and we will need a new clerk for next year. Do I hear any nominations for moderator right now? Any volunteers? Just raise your hand. Okay. Rob, all right. Yeah, Okay. Well, if you're the only volunteer, do we need to do a second and a vote? I don't think so. All right. Yeah. All right. We'll close nominations. And seeing as there's only one candidate, congratulations, Rob, moderator of next year. Do I hear any nominations for clerk for next year? That's a great question. Nicole. That's it. Oh, yes. Yes. For everybody online, the role of the clerk is to ensure that minutes are taken at this meeting. And what was the second part, Nicole? It's been a long day. Yes. Yes. So yes, district staff will take notes. So all the city clerk, all the clerk has to do, school clerk for this process, is sign off. Question, Al? Great. Are there any other nominations or volunteers? Seeing none, I'll close the nominations. Thank you, Councillor Turcos. Moving on to Article 2, shall the district accept the 2026 annual report and all included sub-reports? Is this where we do presentation? Yeah. I'll entertain a motion. Seconded by, I'm sorry? Okay. Thank you. So moved. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Aurora. All those in favor? Signify with an eye. All those opposed? The motion carries. Article carries. Next, Article 3, shall the Board of School Trustees be authorized to allow appropriate groups and agencies to use school facilities and equipment in accordance with district policies? Do I hear a motion, or is there discussion? Moved by Rob. Do I hear a second? Seconded by Emily. All those in favor, please signify with an aye. All those opposed, the motion carries. Four Australian ballot articles for tomorrow, beginning at 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Senior Center at 123 Barlow Street in Winooski. Article 4, to elect 3 school board trustees, 1 for a 3-year term, 1 for a 2-year term, and 1 unexpired year from a 3-year term. Article 5, this is again also for tomorrow, to elect 1 school district treasurer to serve a 3-year term. Article 6, shall the voters of the Winooski School District authorize the school board to use existing funds from the prior year surplus to purchase a property adjacent to the school district at 2 Norman Street for school purposes at an amount not to exceed $380,000. And I believe finally, Article 7, shall the voters of the school district approve the school board to expend $34,818,909, which is the amount the school board has determined to be necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The Winooski School District estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in per pupil education spending of $14,899, which is 2.4% lower than per pupil education spending for the current fiscal year. Do I draw this to a close? Okay, all right. We are recessed until tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. For Australian ballot voting at the Senior Center in Winooski at 123 Barlow Street. Thanks. Rob, do I hand it over? Yeah. Okay.
So Paul online, we're going to do the school now. Hi everyone, I'm Robert Millar, I'm the chair of the school board. So I'm going to give you a presentation tonight on our budget and ballot items, and then I'll turn it over to the city to do their thing as well. If you have any questions at any time, please let me know. I don't have a presentation up yet, so I'll just hang out a minute while Paul gets that straightened out. Do we actually have any folks viewing online?
We do. We have some online folks tonight.
No, we wanted for 6. So there's 2 people. Yeah. Okay, so we have some people joining online. That's great. All right, so thank you, Paul. Go ahead and move to the next slide. All of our presentations always start with this. This is our ends statement, our ends policy, really. We're a policy governance board. For any folks who don't know what that means, it basically just means that we focused high level on policy above all else. That means instead of a mission vision statement, we have what we consider an ends policy. So we try to always be in compliance with this ends policy as much as we can. And our ends policy is all students will graduate from the Winooski School District, college and career ready, at a cost supported by a majority of the Winooski community. WSD students will lead healthy, productive, and successful lives and engage with their local and global community. So in recent years, to check on our compliance with this policy, the board created a set of criteria, which I don't think I have a slide for tonight, but based on this policy, that we could then pick out data points that the administration could bring to us regularly on a monthly basis, picking out different data points that they could bring to us to prove that we are in compliance with this as much as we can. If I could get the next slide, Paul, and please raise your hand at any time if you have any questions. Also, all of this is online as well, wsdvt.org. So if you need more, you can go there. All right, so at the very beginning of our budget process this year, this is one of the first things we looked at is some of the budget pressures we were facing as a district. First of all, there's the ongoing loan payment for all of this, for the capital project that fixed up our building. There's requirements for adding to a reserve fund specifically to that. So you can see that's quite a lot of money right off the top there. Personnel, wages and benefits continue to increase. Health insurance this year increased about 7.25% on average, which we were actually kind of excited about because this is the first time in 4 or 5 years that was less than double digits, which was really weird to get an email saying 7.25% and be like, yeah, wait, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money across a whole staff. Inflation continues. 2026 estimate is about 2.5%, so we have to take that into account for every cost. Special education continues to be a major cost driver for districts across the state. Out-of-district placements, which can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per student, will lead to something that I'll talk about a little later near the end. Preschool, we have been building up our preschool program to meet state requirements, ahead of state requirements, and we are going to be able to offer full 5-day preschool next year. And of course, in the back of our mind through all our discussions this year are potential threats to federal funds under this current administration. All right. Paul, next slide. Long-term capital improvements. I wanted to include this too. This is other things that we're keeping in mind, and we still have continuous capital. Capital is infrastructure. It's the building. It's the grounds. It's all of that. That we have to be, in many cases, saving money to be able to pay for these things. Some of these things you may wonder, why didn't we replace the gym floor when this building was built? A lot of things got what's called value engineered out in order to bring down the overall cost of the capital project. So there are still things that we need to catch up on, like one of the gym floors and the boilers, which are the heating units and a bunch of other stuff in the JFK building. And as you can see, these are not cheap. These are not something that we can budget for in 1 year. These are something that we're trying to build in capital reserves to take care of these over time. A lot of people ask about that front field. That's something that got value engineered out. That's supposed to be a beautiful soccer field, and one day it will be when we get there. All right, next slide, Paul. Okay, so, wow, I'm way too close to this, so it's a little hard for me to see. How many students do we have? We have about 813 students. But under Vermont's education laws, how we pay for education in this state, those students are weighted differently depending on their needs. We have a very unique population with a lot of needs. Some of those needs that are weighted more are students who are experiencing poverty, students in any kind of special education, students who are multilingual learners, for whom English isn't their first language. So, though we have 813 odd physical students in the building, this is what the weights look like. This is important because this is how we pay for education in this state, and how the state decides how much money we as a district should be spending and how much money we get, and therefore what your taxes will look like. You can see there's a very bizarre thing that happened here. This is when Act 127 passed, and this is my 3rd year in a row explaining this, so some people might be a little bored of it, but Act 127 updated the weights, which hadn't been updated since the initial laws, so many years. Greatly increased some of those weights, which means we saw a great increase in our what was now changed from equalized pupils to weighted long-term membership, same basic concept. This was very good for our tax rate. This was also the year that we had the reappraisal, though, so not a lot of people got to see the positive effects of this increase in our weighted long-term membership because their houses doubled in value under the reappraisal. You just can't win sometimes. But you can see then last year, it dropped. It didn't drop. Our student numbers have stayed roughly the same, even increased a little bit, mostly in pre-K since we've expanded pre-K. This probably shouldn't have happened, as might be obvious from this year's, which is pretty close to what it was 2 years ago. There's probably nothing we can do about this, but it's good to be aware of. This number we get to after a lot of conversation with the Agency of Education every year. It's a back and forth that lasts months between our administration and the Agency of Education here in Vermont. Luckily, this year, that back and forth resulted in a higher number than last year, which is why when I get there, you'll see our tax rate actually dropping a little bit, that per pupil cost dropping a little bit. I'm sure there are a lot of questions about that. Does anybody actually want to ask one right now? Yeah, Mike.
You mentioned this year you have 831 students. Assuming that is count the eyeballs and divide by
813, but
813. Yeah. Oops, sorry. Being 813, what was it in 23-24? Just to have a reference point between the change, the radical change that we see here.
the actual physical number of students?
Correct.
Oh boy. I don't know. Our
High
superintendent
700s?
is saying around 780. Did I hear you correctly? Yeah. So for those folks online, Mike was asking how many actual physical students there were back then. It was about 780. So like I said, that's inched up a little bit, which is good, which we want. We have a building that can hold 1,000 students, so we want those numbers to go up. And most districts in the state, not going up. If anything, it's cratering in a lot of districts, which is why we're having all these conversations about education, finance reform, and the legislature and all of that. All right, I have 3 more slides very similar to this, so I'll keep going. Paul, if you could go to the next one. So this is what those changes in those numbers and the costs will get you. This is our per pupil based on that long-term weighted average. This is not per physical student, again, as Mike pointed out. But this is good. This is what we want to see. This is also what goes on the ballot now under new laws. Was that under 127, Nicole? Or was that, yeah, okay. So you'll see the actual ballot language tells people how much this has changed. And so hopefully people will see this and realize like, oh, okay, that's good. We're spending less per pupil. And this is how, they determine our tax rate. I'm going to keep going. Paul, next one. There's that tax rate. So that's what those numbers lead to. And I don't have the slides with the formula, which I wouldn't want to have to try to explain to you all because it's very long. It makes me think of Calc 1 all over again. But it gets us to this tax rate based on the numbers we currently have from the state. And that's important. We say that every year because the legislature can still make changes. Even if they weren't talking about all these big potential ed reform changes, just regular year to year, they could still make changes. One of the things they're talking about, excuse me, my throat's a little dry. One of the things they've been talking about is injecting some one-time money again, as they did last year, to try to keep rates down. If they do that, this actually goes down even more for us. So we aren't anticipating that anything that they could do this year could increase this. Again, nothing is set in stone until we get to the end of the legislative session. So this is the best information we can give you for the moment. Paul, if you could go to the next one. So 2 slides ago, that per pupil spending, this is a slide where you can kind of see where does that get, where do we end up in comparison to some of the folks near us, around us, a little further afield down there in Addison Central, but it's good to have a range of comparisons. And there's only a couple that actually come in less than us in our general region. And that's something to keep in mind. Next one, Paul. Or are you doing it for me? Okay, thank you, Paul. And there it is, that's the number, and I probably should have flipped these order a little bit. This is the budget that we are hoping you will vote for and pass tomorrow. It is an increase of about 4.59%. Now, thinking back to some of those pressures, thinking back to what I said about 7.25% health insurance increase, 2.5% inflation, all those things. We feel like we've gotten here somewhere here with the administration that is a reasonable amount to ask, especially since if you think about that tax rate, it actually drops a penny. And you can see how some of that lays out. All these are green numbers because green is good. That increase is good in weighted pupil. The slight decrease in spending for weighted pupil means your homestead tax rate goes down a little bit. And also the income sensitized property tax rate goes down a little bit because many people actually pay based on their income, not based on the actual value of their property. You may or may not know whether that's you. Make sure, this is where when Isaiah was here next to me last year, he would remind people over and over again, make sure you file your homestead declaration and all of that stuff. So again, slight decreases. Here's sort of how we got there. These are some very high level sort of look at some of how we got there. Compromises that were made. Position changes. Moving some positions around, reducing positions. None of these are layoffs, right? Yes. This is all just shifts and reductions in positions that weren't currently filled or people who are retiring, all of these things. Some additions that we did get to that the administration is adding. You know, again, maintaining basically the same level of programming. 75,000 in additional capital improvement funds. So that's what I was talking about. That's why we had that list of capital needs there at the beginning. You know, we're putting more into our capital improvement fund, our capital reserve fund, so that we can meet those needs over time. Anticipating, oh, please, Mike.
So you mentioned on the previous chart, 300,000 you needed to get up to. I'm assuming that is then it would be a constant rate in the budget.
The 300,000, and please, Nicole or Wilmer, correct me, is a separate reserve, capital reserve fund that the USDA is requiring us to maintain.
Because of the loan.
Because of the loan. So in case something goes crazy and they need to call it in, we have built up enough.
So this add of 75K in a capital improvement brings it up to 150,000 in the budget. What is the goal for that capital improvement fund overall, year to year, ongoing?
I'll turn to you. What are we trying to get? I mean, overall, we're trying to meet all those capital needs and future capital needs. So socking away 150,000 a year and meeting those needs as we get there. Sure.
Well,
oh yeah. Please, Nicole, you have the mic.
I wanted to clarify two things. The $300,000 was added to the base budget last year.
Yeah.
So that's not new money this year. It's just continuing. And then I believe the goal is to just have a standing budget item of budget line of 150,000 per year to the capital reserve fund on an ongoing basis.
So that we can meet those needs over time. The ones that I had listed there and many more that we're anticipating.
It's also just for people it's for people online.
The reason I ask is when we went to the capital improvement in the first place, this place was ragged.
Yeah.
And there was no funds to do anything, roofs, boilers. You get electrical stuff off eBay if somebody had it. And I would rather not in 15 or 20 years come back to need a roof and not have the funds. That's all what this fund is aimed at. Okay, thank you.
Yes, I should have said it's not just those kinds of things, it's maintaining so we don't have the same sort of problems that we so historically seem to run into with a lot of things in Winooski. Anything else on that? I think we got to clarity thanks to Mike, not thanks to me, that's for sure. That's why he was chair of the school board for many years. All right, some other things that were identified by administration and us is working with GMT to create a partnership where our students will have more free access to GMT buses so they can get around a little bit more. More work-based learning opportunities, something we've been building already, and want to have money for that. Something called the Student Leadership Fund that would allow for paying some students some stipends for some very particular leadership roles. Moving our Spanish multilingual liaison to full-time. Even drinking that water, I'm still struggling a little bit. I was sick most of February. It was a blur. So for those who don't know, we have a number of what's called multilingual liaisons that work in very specific languages, depending on the liaison, to work with families and kids. This is a program that's been built over a number of years now. We added Spanish liaison, I don't know when, but they've been part-time. But the administration identified that we need to increase that to full-time because the number of Spanish-speaking students and families has actually increased, which is interesting to me because it hasn't historically been the case. We've had 30 other languages, but not Spanish as much, but that's been increasing. And as I alluded to, expanding our pre-K to allow up to 5-day for everyone. And this is a real need, and this fills up as soon as it's available. Our families are very, very much taking advantage of the new pre-K. Any questions on that so far? I thought Mike was going to raise his hand again, but no, he's okay. Next one, Paul. All right, so just want to reiterate what I put Wilmer on the spot on about before. Those reductions are not what's called reductions in force. They're not layoffs. It's moving stuff around for the most part. We don't anticipate any actual layoffs with this. With maybe one. Okay, so we're saying 1 or 0. So probably no layoffs. And we just want to be very clear on that. We're not in a place where we need to be making layoffs. But what administration really wanted to do is use the 2, 3, 4-year plans. I don't know what you focus on mainly. 3 years? 3. He's nodding his head. Look at those 3-year plans. Look at how our population is increasing or not, and really anticipate and make sure that we're meeting those goals, and that we're meeting new requirements from the state in terms of classroom sizes. All right, next, Paul. Okay, so here's some projected taxes. I'm not going to go through this whole thing, but you can this again, it's all on the website too. But you can get an idea of what 1 cent means for different levels. And it used to be that most of them would be down here, up near the top, and now a lot more are down in this level, which never used to be the case in Winooski, but now it is. So, if you look at like 500,000, you just saw a slight decrease last year and another $100 this year. Not exactly gonna do a whole lot for you, but that's where you'll be. If you want to go to the next one. And here's if you pay based on your income, you should still see some slight decreases depending on where your income is. And as somebody who does this, it's very confusing and you never really know until you get there. But hopefully you'll see a little bit of a decrease. Next. All right, so I mentioned how special ed, you've probably already seen a bit about this in Front Porch Forum. So administration, in the course of the budget discussion, started talking about how do we have several students with some very particular needs, some very intensive needs, as we say. And those needs aren't being met, and they can't be met in the district for a variety of reasons. They're different students, different needs. It's traditionally, going way back, these kind of students are tuitioned out to private schools. Many of those schools have been closing since the pandemic for a variety of reasons, which means that there are long wait lists and that students are, in some cases, being sent very far away to St. Albans, to the southern part of the state. So we're not only paying hundreds of thousands of dollars in tuition, we're paying for that transportation cost, which is way more than you would expect it to be. So that adds up. So administration started talking amongst themselves, how could we start a program in district? And it's important to note, yeah. So they started talking about this. They came back to us, and one of the things is we're talking about students whose particular needs can't really be met in this building. And I know immediately a lot of people are like, we were just talking about the capital project. We have this big, great new building that holds 1,000 students, but there are a variety of reasons why it just doesn't work for these particular students. It could be safety reasons, it could be health reasons, it could be any number of things. I'm not going to make too many guesses because this is a very small city and I don't want to like call anybody out. But so administration originally was talking about, well, maybe we could buy something, maybe we could rent something within the city so that students could receive these special programs without having to go to freaking St. Albans or wherever else, right? All of a sudden, a house right here on Norman Street comes up for sale. And we're like, okay, explore that. And sure enough, this seems to be an option. So we can't buy property as a board without your permission. So after a number of meetings and a lot of back and forth, we decided to ask voters for permission to use up to $380,000 in previous year's surplus to purchase this house. So how you vote on this item won't affect the budget I've just been talking about, because this money is not coming out of that budget. And then it need to be fixed up, and so the idea is to then have these programs housed there. This property is not new. It's many decades old. I don't think it's 100 years. I keep saying it's 100 years old. It can't possibly be that, but it could be pretty close. And we've identified there's going to be a lot of work that would be needed to bring that up to the code that we need as a school, which is very different than it's required right now as a personal residence. So there's costs there. There's going to be a lot of upfront costs to make that happen. The board still feels that it will pay for itself in the long run because of that hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're spending every year. It should save us hundreds of thousands of dollars per year once we get there. It has been discussed in our most recent meeting some maybe alternative uses for that property in the meantime, as I understand it, and any board member can correct me, such as switching out admin in there because of how much it's going to cost to get it up to the code that it needs to be to have students in there. But we still do think that this will pay for itself over time. Any questions on that? Also, it's up to 380, and we've actually kind of negotiated on that. So, just FYI. Yes. You were first.
Hi, good evening. So my mind is just flying with the possibility of what might be happening on Norman Street eventually for the students. But I'm assuming then that there will have to be very specifically trained staff for that set of programs also, in addition to bringing the building up to code for students to be able to even occupy the building. So is that also part of the planning that the board is putting in place?
Yes, and he's already raising his hand, so Wilmer, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Hi, thank you for the question. My administration presented the board back in December with a very detailed proposal that laid out not only the need, but also in terms of numbers, the amount of dollars to serve a hypothetical 5 students as of right now. And at the end, we also show the kind of money that we would be looking at, not only in terms of purchasing, but also staffing that space. We might already have experts in-house that we can reassign to that program, but we might need extra hands as well, like additional aides, specialists in some sort of areas, because this will be a transitional program for highly specialized services. And you can see, if you go onto our website, you go to the budget section, it's almost at the top. There's the memo that we gave the administration. It gives you all those numbers. and it accounts for those personnel expenses. So it will be a mix of existing capacity that we have, but also probably we assume we would need additional help. And still we feel confident that this will be a good investment and we will actually save us money in the midterm. Probably not even long term. We might start seeing savings soon. But I cannot promise something for sure, because anything could happen. And that's why it's up to the voters to decide whether this feels like a wise investment at this moment in time.
Robert, we have a question online from a Natalie.
Did you say there's a question online?
Yeah, I'm going to bring
I
Natalie.
feel like I'm talking to God. Okay, Paul, put it through. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we do that, did you have a follow-up? I'm sorry. We're going to finish in here first, Paul. I'm so sorry. Please.
Just really quickly, I just wanted to say I am excited to hear about this potential of a program and thinking about the students who have various special needs, not having to sit on a bus for hours at the beginning and end of each day, but being able to stay within their community and close to home and close to family as needed. I mean, I think it's a lovely, wonderful plan. I hope it works out.
Okay, thank you. Mike, did you have a question too, or did you got it? Okay. All right, Paul.
Natalie, the floor is yours. Go ahead with your question.
I was just wondering. I did look into that house and I was curious. I did see it's already under active contract. So I didn't know if the school had already put in some papers on the house. I was just curious about that.
Yes, we moved very quickly on that, but that is contingent on the voters, because we can't buy property without the voters, unlike, say, the city, but that you'll hear about that later. No, you won't. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Somebody should ask about it. That's what Elaine said. I'm going to pretend. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, so it's under contract, but there was a contract that was contingent on voter approval because of that requirement. Now, another question that I got over the weekend, which was a very, very good question, is what happens to that building and this beautiful new building if we get consolidated with another district? And the short answer to that is I have no idea, because it would be a new district with a new board who might have very different priorities. So we can't actually know for sure. What the legislature has most recently been looking at is a combination with Burlington. And that combination, when I look at that, I can't see them just closing these buildings and sending all of our students to various Burlington schools. I think that they will that board, which would definitely include Winooski people, and that's another thing is we're not entirely sure still, and Nicole, you can correct me if how these kinds of combined districts would necessarily look. I assume there'd be some sort of proportional representation between Winooski and Burlington, but that hasn't been set. And again, this is a map that the House Ed is looking at. So like this is them spitballing. So don't like put me on the spot for this, but it is out there. It is in the legislature. So I did want to address that. So we can't really know for sure that the new board wouldn't be like, okay, we're going to sell everything. But it's very, very, very unlikely, because Burlington also has students with very particular needs like this. Our students don't disappear. This is another thing with the consolidation discussion that I think gets lost sometimes. Is like, just because you consolidate districts doesn't mean there aren't still 813 students here in Winooski that need to be educated in various ways. So, but I thought that was a really great question, so I did want to bring it up here. Mike.
I applaud the effort for the House. I know out-of-district placements are grossly expensive, so that sounds like a great idea. The $380,000 that came out of last year's surplus, what was last year's surplus, and where is the rest of it if there's additional? Where did that go? And which categories did those surpluses come from?
Wilmer. I just like to put him on the spot.
There's a lot of specific details to the numbers you're asking for, so I'm not going to attempt it. But I will say we have close to $2 million in surplus right now, which, listen to this, it's no, not from last year, but mostly from last year, because we had a large surplus from last year, which kudos to the board, because it means you, one, budgeted responsibly, and kudos to the administration and staff because they spent responsibly. And a lot of that comes from different places here and there, you know, and it's mostly about underspending certain things, sometimes not filling vacant positions, sometimes it can come from all sorts of places. IT, for example, didn't spend all the money we had budgeted for them, even though they got the job done, and we saved, you know, considerable amount of money there. But as I said, I'm not going to go into every line there because it's a lot of details. But anyways, we have close to $2 million in surplus. But what I wanted to say is that, according to our auditors, that's not even close to enough to what we should have in surplus money. And that's why some members of the board might be hesitant to say, let's not go too quick with this situation with the house, or let's not get too excited too quickly by spending or depleting a good portion of our reserve funds, because we're not quite there where we should be according to our auditors. And so this is not something that our administration takes lightly, because we ourselves see those needs that you saw in one of the slides, the capital needs and all sorts of things that we could use surplus money for. And the board also understands that, you know, budgeting every year, it's a very tricky thing, and we're between a rock and a hard place often. And I'm not foreseeing next year to see a jump in equalized or weighted pupils again, like we saw this year. I don't know how we can possibly continue to sustain decreases in your tax rate like we've done in the past 3 years. And all of that is quite a bit of pressure on board members and also on the administration. So that's why this is not, it's not like we're going out to the city and saying like, hey, let's get this house, let's do this, let's do that, because we don't know. These are, when it comes to these investments, we have to do it very thoughtfully, and it's not as straightforward as it might seem. But in a few words, I will say we do have a healthy amount of surplus money from the previous past years, but it is not at the recommended levels just yet. We might be getting there. I do not foresee, according to our last quarterly management report, it doesn't seem like we are overspending for this year. So if we cross fingers and maybe we have another small surplus, maybe we will make that healthier, but we're not there yet. I don't know yet. I hope that helps answer your question. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So I'm on the finance committee, so let me see if I can. So our audited surplus from prior year was, this previous year was 1.2 million. So we added 1.2 million to our prior year's accumulated, which was around $1 million. So we have just over 2 million. This 380,000 is going to come out of that. We may, as Wilmer said, we may end this fiscal year adding a little bit more. Historically, our auditors have said you should have about 4% on reserve to help cover, you know, surprises, or just from a cash flow purpose, it's useful to have funds in reserve. Over 4% of your annual operating budget. Yeah. And this year they gave us a higher number than that. So it caught us a little bit off guard. So that's where Wilmer's saying, our auditor says we have a ways to go. I think we're still wrapping our head around what that looks like from a planning perspective, because it was new information for us. But the upshot is it's just over $2 million. The 380,000 is coming out of that.
Any other questions? All right. Paul, I may be done. What's the next slide? There it is. Go vote tomorrow between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. at 123 Barlow Street.
All right. So I am interim mayor Thomas Runner, and I will go over the city side of the budget. And I also have our city manager here, Elaine, and our finance director, Angela, if we have some more detailed questions. Paul, thank you. So brief agenda, we'll go over our proposed budget, capital plan, town meeting day, voting information, bond votes. I'd like to always start that the tax rate increase that we're proposing this year is 7.92%. Paul, next slide. So we got there through a lot of different meetings and conversations with staff and staff doing a lot of work. I, at the beginning of this budget, along with the fellow councilors on city council, told staff to show us absolutely everything that needed to be done this year. For folks who haven't been tracking, we've been making strategic investments as a city council in specific areas. So last year we did infrastructure. The year before that we did community services, which we thought was a really good approach because we've, for many, many years, underinvested in the city. So we knew by doing those strategic investments that there was probably a lot that we weren't doing. So staff did that. It was really great. They didn't show us everything, I'm pretty sure, but they showed us a lot. And at the end of all of our presentations, I asked Angela to show us what doing everything would look like for your property taxes, and that was a 34% tax increase. So we decided that was probably going to be way too high. So we worked really, really hard to bring that down to the 7.92% that I'm going to talk to you about today. So similar to the school, we try to be guided by some main principles: economic vitality, municipal infrastructure, housing, safe, healthy, connected people. These are the areas that we are thinking about when we're trying to make investments in our city and are part of our strategic vision. Paul, next slide. And there those are again, just a little bigger for you to see. Give you a second to, I was going to give you a second to read those, but that's okay. Paul, keep going. We've got this video about Main Street. We can skip that as well. All right, so this is the big number that everybody is always wondering about. So the median household in Winooski is $413,000. Robert alluded earlier to how wild that is and how we haven't seen that maybe ever. So without any homestead discounts or any other discounts you may get on your taxes, that $3,493.59 is what we are going to be looking at for your annual tax bill from the city. If you look at the 7.92% tax increase, that's an addition of $256.54. Your utility rates this year are going up, as they do every year, because utility costs continue to increase year over year. 5.9% for the water rate, putting that at $28.52. 8.8% for the wastewater rate, putting that at $54.98 for a total of $83.50. So those things combined, the new tax rate plus the water and wastewater, is $340.04 is the addition that we're going to be asking for you all from your taxes annually. Next slide, Paul. So what's driving the 7.92? As we've seen year over year, the biggest portion of that is salaries and benefits. Health insurance continues to rise. The school deals with this. Everybody is dealing with this. We made some adjustments last year. Angela, our finance director, was able to move all of our employees over to a different plan, which ended up saving taxpayers a very large amount of money. That said, things are still increasing year over year. And back to salaries and benefits, a lot of our staff are tied to cost of living increases, so we have to make those increases every single year. The next thing that you're going to see is 4%, so that's capital plan increases, so money into our longer term projects, into our capital plan. New staff and increased hours is 34%. I'll explain more of that later. Contract increases and inflation. So again, everybody is experiencing increases in every type of business they do. So the folks that we contract with, like Green Mountain Transit, Town Meeting TV, all of those people are experiencing increases in their budget. Those get passed along to the member municipalities. And then decreased revenues is 8%. Next slide. So this is where your money is going to per each bucket that we spend in the city. Let me move so you can see that. So again, we're saying we're using that $413,000 property, $3,494. So $1,056 of that is going to the police department. They are the only department that is 24/7 staffed. So that is why they always take up that larger share of the budget. in order for you to be able to call 911 and have somebody come to your house at any time of the night or day. We need to pay them for that time, so that's why they're so expensive. Next is money into our capital project, $576. So those are capital expenses, annual paving, vehicles, large projects. General administration, $542.30. So that's paying for city council, city manager, clerks, planning and zoning, our legal staff. Public works, $469.78. Roads, sidewalks, facilities, engineering, maintenance. Community services, $391.74. Library, senior center, rec, parks, pool. Fire department, $250.79. Fire and code, building inspections. And then contracts, $207.51. And again, a lot of those organizations that I mentioned. Next slide, Paul. So what's new? What is driving the 7.92%? So the biggest number there, $138,439, is for a fire captain. So this position is one that City Council thinks is extraordinarily important. If you didn't know, most of our fire department is a volunteer fire department, and we have a few members who are staffed and paid with full-time salaries. We have found and been having difficulty recruiting volunteer firefighters for many years. It's not just a Winooski problem, it's almost nationwide, but I can at least say it's a Vermont problem. So the chief has been kicking around different ways to try to make sure that we have expanded coverage, full coverage in reality. Again, I want to make sure that if you have to call the fire department at any time of the day, that somebody from Winooski will be able to respond. So the fire captain is where the chief has suggested in being able to fill that gap. So they'll provide additional capacity for public building inspections and for emergency response. Public building inspections is a really important part of our fire department. It actually pays for a lot of the salaries for the firefighters. Increase the senior center director to full-time. So we have a part-time senior center director right now. Ever since I joined council 4 years ago, and I believe before that, folks who use the senior center and who support the senior center have been requesting that we make that a full-time position. Staff brought it up a few years ago, and sorry, Ray, we said no. But there has been such outreach there that City Council is now asking the voters to put that person to full-time. In addition to providing those seniors who already use the space with expanded programming and open, just keeping the building open, to be honest, we also believe that that director will be able to provide more programming for just adults in general, so that anybody can really feel like there's something for them to do at the senior center. A fifth dispatcher, so we do our own dispatch in the Winooski Police Department. So again, in order to just make sure that we have that fully operational, we're looking for that fifth position. Increasing health reimbursement account for employees. I see this very much as one, just showing city staff that we appreciate them, but also a retention effort. Grant match. So this is really cool, actually. So whenever anybody reaches out to the city, and a lot of people reach out to complain about a street that they feel isn't safe or that needs studying, we have to do a traffic study to do that. Those studies run around $5,000 a study, so we don't do a lot of them every single year. Staff identified a very interesting grant that for $15,000 will give us 10 studies. Ellen? Yeah. So it will essentially enable us to do more than what we would have done without the grant. So we thought that was a good use of money. We're going to spend less than we would and get more out of it. Seasonal park maintenance staff. So right now, if you go and use any of the parks within Winooski, our existing community services staff as well as DPW staff are the ones who are trying to maintain those parks, along with all of the other work that they do during the year. So we heard about this pitch of a seasonal park maintenance staff member who would be dedicated to those parks during the warmer months. That way, it wouldn't become a secondary task, for example, if there was debris in the way of a path and nobody was able to traverse it anymore. And I always like to think of this as, You know, if I'm walking along one of our paths in Winooski, I can just jump over that, tree that's there. Not everybody is able to do that. And by not having a dedicated staff member to do it, it could shut somebody out from enjoying that park that their taxes pay for multiple days. Increasing the council stipend. This is always an interesting one for me to talk about, but it was actually recommended by a member of the community. City councilors have been paid $1,500 a year for about 20 years. So we're asking for folks to double that. We recognize that this isn't still a ton of money, but our hope is that by increasing the stipend, it will, one, show current city councilors that they're appreciated, but also tell people who are interested in running for city council, it might open up avenues for more people. So somebody who might need childcare, for example, to attend city council meetings, if we give a little more money to that person, they may be able to pay for the childcare with that stipend. Livable wage adjustment. So increasing base wages for entry-level non-union employees to $22.50 an hour. Again, we just thought this was something that our staff deserved and that would help with retention. National Fire Protection Association level physical examinations. This one line is kind of something I see that we actually absolutely have to do because the federal government actually requires it from us to make sure for every new firefighter that we have. So really need voters to approve at least that. A human resources information system. Again, just increasing efficiency of the human resources department, not very glamorous. And then an increase for translation services, adding $2,000 to the budget. And that just helps us to do more translation if we need it. The city manager did mention to us during our conversations that our current budget is doing pretty well in terms of meeting all of the translation needs that we have. But we were just hoping to bolster that a little more just so that we never have to be in the situation where we don't have enough money to do translation. Any questions on anything on this slide? There's a lot of positions there. All right, next slide, Paul. Oh.
I had a couple. Just a quick one on the human resource information system. Is that a one-time cost?
No.
Ongoing?
No. Correct.
Okay. The other one involves, you mentioned a contract with Green Mountain Transit, GMT.
Yes.
And you had a line item in here for translation services.
Yes.
In both of those cases, does the city work with the school in order to ensure that our contracts are the best we can get for specifically Green Mountain Transit?
I don't know
translation services at $2,000 is.
Yeah, I don't know if we work with the school on Green Mountain Transit. They're not the ones who are one of the municipal delegated payees to Green Mountain Transit. So, Robert, I don't know if you all have conversations with them ever, but
sorry. Yeah, you were paying attention to my presentation, and I talked about GMT. We've never had any kind of partnership. This is a new thing that we're exploring, where we reached out to him. So I don't know if we could do something with the city, but it might be. It probably. Now I'm gonna take my school board hat on and put an old hat from when I used to be on the GMT board, and it's probably a completely different thing because communities who are member communities have to pay in certain amount. So, Williston, Winooski, all of those. So that might have to be a completely separate thing.
What being a paying member does mean is whenever GMT is doing, like they just did, some drastic changes to their routes, they have to come and present that to us, and we get the opportunity to push back as hard as we can.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
The only other one I had is on the 5th dispatcher.
Yeah.
Few years back, there was talk of a regional 911
Yes.
system. Where is that, and has it ever come back?
So that is why we have the 5th dispatcher up here. The conversations on that, I don't want to say have completely stopped or ended, but they're not progressing as the way that we had hoped a few years ago when we started talking about that to the public. but our dispatch needs obviously continue. So important to make sure that we are covering ourselves while that conversation happens or doesn't happen as much as it should. George.
Just following up on that question, quickly. The 5th dispatcher is 30,000 and change, but is that for half a year or that's for a full year?
I'm going to let Angela explain that one, or Elaine.
Hey, George. So the reason why it's only 30,000 as opposed to what you would expect from a full-time dispatcher is because the city council's already been and the community has already voted to carry a certain amount for an admin position that we would have needed if we had regional dispatch. Since we don't have regional dispatch for the foreseeable future, then we're just budgeting for the increase to get to what the salary of a 5th dispatcher would be compared to just an admin assistant. It's a year. Yeah. In addition to what's already in the base budget. That covers a 5th dispatcher for the whole year.
Thanks, Elaine. Any other questions? All right, next slide, Paul. So you're going to see 3 bond items on your ballot this year. So let's go over those. The first one, the Cascades Garage, we're asking for a bond amount of $580,000. If you have been in the Cascades Garage in the past several years, but the past year at least, the elevator there has not worked. Some residents have asked, well, can we just leave it not working then? And again, I say not everybody can take the stairs to get from one level to the next level. So we do want to fix that. We do think it is important for a variety of reasons. So we're hoping that voters will approve that. If we do get the money, the work will, we don't have a timeline yet for the work, but we were hoping that it will start as soon as possible. Next bond vote, Paul. East Spring Street. So this is the one that everybody is talking about on Front Porch Forum. We are really excited about this potential, actually, because one, it's something that we have been hearing about for a really long time, adding a sidewalk to the rest of East Spring Street. This photo over here, I don't know if you can see it, is just somebody walking on that street. You could probably take that photo at any time of day. Even though there is no sidewalk there, people walk it, bike it, scooter it all the time. It's dangerous for the pedestrians and the walker and the bikers. It's dangerous for the cars. So it's been an ask for a very long time. And one of the reasons that makes this project make sense right now is at the Hoods intersection, the state is going to be installing new lights there in anticipation of the bridge project. So we'd like to be doing this project while the state is working on the lights, and at the same time we can be doing the sidewalk work. That way, not inconveniencing residents by 2 separate projects in the same area at different times of the year. And also, we'll be able to work alongside the state and them with us as we're doing these projects. So again, that's a $500,000 bond vote. And the last one, please, Paul. And then the police department and city hall. So this is the most expensive one, $950,000. But the work that we're looking to do in the police department is extensive, and it's extensive for a reason. So recently there was some testing done down in the police department. If you've ever been down there, it's definitely run down and doesn't look great. But on top of that, there was asbestos found in the floors, mold found in the ceilings. So that right there is not working conditions. There's no separate toilet in the holding area, so folks that are being held down there have to use this toilet in the office that the police officers use. So one, for police officers, also for people being held down there, the space really, one, isn't ideal, and truly I don't think it's safe given the testing that was found. And on top of that, many of our neighboring communities have built multi-million-dollar police departments. I haven't heard this as an official reason from the city manager, but I do know that when other police departments are trying to recruit, they show officers what they have built and what is brand new. And we have some amazing officers here in Winooski, and I wouldn't want the fact that what we're offering them is really kind of this dingy, not great space to then lead to them wanting to go over to South Burlington or somewhere like that. And then on top of that, while we're doing this work, hopefully in the police department, in the downstairs part of City Hall, upstairs, we'd like to do some just basic cosmetic upgrades. So new carpets, new painting. Again, if you've been into City Hall anytime within the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years, it looks really, really weathered. And again, this was a community member request, actually, who had asked us several times at many different meetings if we could just simply replace the carpets. City staff has never made this ask of City Council because of all the many things in our city that needs to be done. They're thankfully very selfless people and haven't wanted to put that ask out there. Some members of City Council and I were talking the other day, and we'd actually like to see a bigger renovation at City Hall, but city staff asked for us not to ask for that and to just do the light renovations instead. So those 3 bond votes, I'll stop and see if anybody has questions on any of those. All right, Paul, next slide. And this slide we always just like to put up here. There's a lot going on, but I just like to show you that we do have plans for paving and sidewalk replacements across the city. It's something that we hear about from people all the time, asking when their street is going to get repaved or when their sidewalk is going to get fixed. I just like to share that there is indeed a plan, even if it is coming a little slower than you would like. But if you are wondering more details about the street that you live on, please feel free to reach out to City Council, to any member of City Council, and we'll be happy to explain that to you. Next slide, Paul. All right, so what are you going to see on your ballot tomorrow? City and school budgets, 3 council seats with 1- and 2-year terms, 1 mayor seat for a 1-year term, the 3 bond votes, and 3 school board seats with 1-, 2-, and 3-year terms, and the Winooski School District Treasurer as well. And a reminder, as you're out talking about voting, that everybody in Winooski, regardless of citizenship status, is able to vote. And voting is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Are the 3 bonds in the 7.92%?
So the bonds are separate.
What is the total? What would the total be?
Oh, that is, sorry, I guess that is calculated in the 7.92.
The garage one is not part of the tax rate at all.
Did you hear that?
The vote for the elevator in the parking garage will be paid for by parking fees. It is not part of the city tax rate.
That is Angela, our finance director.
All right. I think that's it. Paul, is there another slide? Oh, no. This one. What is there still to do? So as I mentioned, we could have done 34%, and that still would have left a lot of this stuff off. Again, nothing that any member of City Council would be wanting to do, but it is good for people to know how much work there is that we have identified that needs to be done. One that always stands out to me is within the water fund, the deferred maintenance long-term water lines. So that's just replacement of water lines in the city that we know needs to happen, $11 million. Enough public safety staff, so those firefighters and police officers, an economic development director. This is something that city councilors have talked about for a long time, wanting to bring this position back. And it's just something that we keep pausing on because adding new positions are expensive. And small things like updated access control for city facilities. If you've ever come to City Hall for a meeting after hours, you'll see the brick that keeps the door open. So just like to put this here. There's a lot that we need to do in the city still. we keep chipping away at things, but I like to remind folks that we are trying to do it in a way that won't make your taxes too high, but there's still stuff to do. Yes, we did move away from the brick, and we have an actual door stopper now. Thank you, Elaine. Next slide, Paul. There we go, and that's the end. So please vote, folks. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
I have sample ballots if anyone wants to see what their ballot will look like tomorrow.
So, have a good night, everyone.